Good Vach, everybody. I'm sorry that we didn't have our roundtable discussion this week. I didn't want a week to go by without us, sharing some ideas, and I want to start off with a story. There is a custom that Motzei Shabbos, after Shabbos, to say over a story from a holy person or a nice, inspiring story. So I would like to share with you a story that I'm familiar with. There was this Jew that passed away about 40 plus years ago. His name was Rizal. He was a Holocaust survivor. And after the Holocaust, he went to Israel and he lived in Israel for a couple of years. And then he moved back to Antwerp, Belgium. And he had a group of followers that came along with him, back to Antwerp and in Belgium. And one of his followers lived, in Belgium for many years, and him and his wife, they were not able to have children. They were married for 20 plus years. The wife had many miscarriages, and it pretty much was like an impossibility for her to have children. So he, the husband, he decided he's going to go to the rabbi and he's going to ask him for a blessing for children. So he goes to the rabbi, he says, "Rabbi, look, I'm a very close follower of yours for many years. You've blessed other people with children. Can you please bless me with a child?" So the rabbi turns to him and says, "Do you want a boy or do you want a girl?" So, the man says, "I don't know, let me ask my wife. It's a good question. I can't make that decision on my own." So he goes back home and he sits, with his wife at the dinner table, and he says to his wife, "Look, I went to the rabbi today. I asked him for a blessing for children, and he asked me whether, we wanted a boy, or if we wanted a boy, or do we want a girl?" So the wife thinks for a few moments and says, "Okay, I'm very bad at directions. I can't, I get lost very easily whenever I go out. I need somebody to help me always when I get out. If I had a son that was like me, that was bad at directions, it would be terrible. He wouldn't know where to navigate. He wouldn't know where to go. It looks very silly on a boy to be bad at directions, but if it's a girl, it's not so bad. She'll have her husband to take her around, and she'll have her children to help her out. So let's ask for a girl. It'll make it, easier, if she's born with some type of, bad at the directions, if she's not born with, she's not able to navigate the city, it's not terrible." Okay? So the gentleman goes back to the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, my wife and I discussed, we would like to have a girl." And sure enough, they were blessed with a girl not that long later, and that girl is actually my mother. My mother was born from a blessing, and she's the only child, and her parents, waited many years for her to be born, and she was born through a blessing from this holy Jew. And I take away from this story a very important lesson. The lesson I take away from the story is sometimes in life we have, an impossible goal, and it seems like an impossibility that we're ever going to attain that goal. It could be getting married, it could be having children, it could be having, financial success and health, or whatever we're looking for. Our children should give us, nachas, and we don't know what to do. And sometimes all it is that we have to ask. We have to ask God, say to God, "Look, God, you gave us a mission. You told us that we have to do what you want us to do. You want us to get married. You want us to feed our families. You want us to pay tuition. You want us to have good children. You want us to be healthy. So just please give us the capability to do what you're asking us to do." And this ties into this week's parsha as well, into this week's, discussion in the Torah that we read this week, about the same concept, that what happened was the Jews left Egypt, and They were traveling through the desert. They received the Torah. And God tells them, I'm going to give you this wonderful land, the land of Israel. This beautiful country. It's going to be amazing. And he tells the Jews, you're going to have to conquer it, but I'm going to give it to you, and it's going to be yours. So the Jews got together, and they said to Moses, look, we're going to be, invading this land. We really got to, send spies and scout out the land and to figure out a strategy how to approach, conquering this big, vast country with a strong army. We're not capable of fighting big armies. We have to strategize how we're going to put together a military strategic planning, how we're going to conquer this land. So Moses consults with God, and God says, sure, if they want to go check it out, they're more than welcome to check it out. And the 12 tribes each appointed a representative that was going to go and spy, into this country and come back with a report. So they go into this country, and it's like a story out of a fairy tale. There's giants, literally giants, and the Gemara talks about, the Talmud talks about how big these giants were. We're talking about huge people, hundreds of feet tall. Their cities were fortified. Their armies were super strong. The country was abnormal. I mean, the fruits and the vegetation that grew there was just ginormous and massive. It's completely crazy, just to even think about whether or not we could conquer this land. This is a complete impossibility. And 10 of the spies come back with negative reports, and 2 of the spies come back with a positive report saying that if God tells us that we're capable of conquering this land, then he's going to give us the tools and the capabilities. And even if it's going to seem natural, it's still going to be completely done. There's no so to speak like idea that God cannot accomplish something that he wishes to accomplish. And he wants to give us the land. So it kind of falls into the same conversation that, we had before about if a person just asks, that he tells God, look, you gave us this mission. You told us we have to conquer this world and conquer these commandments. And this is, the Torah is huge. How are we ever going to possibly do this? And how are we ever going to possibly get married and raise children in this crazy environment? And how are we going to, do what we need to do? All the odds are against us. All we have to do is pray and say to God, look, God, please give me the tools that we need to accomplish our mission and to do what we need to do. And I want to finish off with another story. About 5-6 weeks ago, I took a group of people. Some of you kind of know this about me, that I'm very, I feel close to the Kal Rebbe. He lives in Williamsburg. He's a very, very holy Jew. And I encourage people to go see him, and I go myself often to see him. So I went with a group of people, about 4 or 5 friends who live in my neighborhood. I said, look, hey, come with me. And 4 or 5 friends came along with me for the trip. And, before we went in, they all were asking me questions like, what could the rabbi do for me? I'm like, look, make a prayer. This is a godly man. This man, all he does all day is prays and studies, and he's completely connected to God. So pray to God that God should answer your prayers, that whatever you need, you should find the salvation. And I followed up with them about 3-4 weeks later, and I'm still talking to some of them, and their lives have completely changed to the positive. I can't get into all the details because it's very complex. Each person was a very complex subject, but their lives have completely changed. And it's the same thing with us. If we want something, if we want, to do what God tells us to do, he wants us to do mitzvos, he wants us to keep the Torah, he wants us to do what we have to do. All we need, and we lack the, so to speak, the physical strength or the mental strength. All we have to do is pray and say, God, look, I want to do what you want me to do. I want to conquer this land. I want to conquer the mitzvahs. I want to conquer the Torah. I want it. Just give me the tools. Give me the capability to do so. And God will definitely answer your prayers in the positive. And there's no room for failure. There's absolutely no room for failure. It doesn't exist. And all we got to do is just ask. And sometimes when we ask, we'll be surprised that the answer is yes, and we're going to get what we need to do what Hashem tells us to do, and we'll be successful. Everybody should have a wonderful week, a healthy week, a successful week, a good week, and thank you for listening. Have a good night.